Okay, Joseph and Errol will do.
Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Joseph Aaron, Chairman of Affirming Fatherhood. We are on the hour of 6 o'clock, or 2 past the hour. And I am going to ask if we could wait just a few more minutes so we can allow other persons to join, those who may be coming in from work and have not yet gotten home, are still in the traffic. They know how the traffic hour go. But I'm asking if would that be okay? Colleagues who are just joining.
Yep.
Sonia with a thumbs up. Thank you, Sonia, and Javila who with a thumbs up as well. Thank you very much for acknowledging.
Yeah. Asking if all who came on went through the registration process, so we have their email addresses and so on.
Yeah, we should that come up in the parenting partners email.
It should come up. Okay.
Yeah, they've been coming in.
Already. So we have put together what promises to be an interesting evening of discussion surrounding paternity leave. And I want to ask everybody in the conversation to simply open your minds and feel free to add to the conversation, because this is a specific topic that we know the wide consultation is needed as wide as possible. Anybody and everybody does have an opinion. Anybody and everybody who's involved in any way to parenting will be affected by paternity leave. So we ask you to participate, feel free to share, feel free to ask, feel free to make your own suggestions, because they will definitely go a far way. We have with us Errol Fabien. Errol, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Errol Fabien. I'm here to, I guess, moderate pretty much this evening. I am an independent politician. I'm a comedian. I'm a media person. I run a television station. I'm a father of 8. All kinds of things, you know, and it's really good to be here.
All right, thank you, Fabian. We also have with us Anderson Langdon, and I'll ask Anderson to go ahead and introduce himself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Anderson Langdon. I'm the Executive Director of the Barbados Family Association, the BFPA. We are a sexual and reproductive health organization that provides for the persons who are in need of access to sexual and reproductive health care. And we advocate for the right to access, to choose, and we also empower young people to make good sexual and reproductive health decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Anderson. And then we have Steven. So I'll allow Steven to go ahead and introduce himself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Steven Whittingham. I'm an executive at the Grace Kennedy Group and father of four children. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion today about what I think is just a really great topic. So thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. We also have later on, we're going to have more persons online. Specifically, we have Sean Wright. He will be joining us from Canada, and he will be giving us his experience where paternity leave is concerned. But this promises to be an enlightening discussion on this specific topic, as Affirming Fatherhood continues the conversation surrounding affirming fathers. Those of us who may not be aware, Affirming Fatherhood is a project being being run by Parenting Partners Caribbean. And the aim, in a nutshell, is simply to raise the bar on how much we value fathers and fatherhood. And so paternity leave is a critical step in this movement. And it is very timely that that the government of Jamaica would have recently announced the move to bring into policy paternity leave. And so we really welcome this. We had to jump on this. You know, we wanted to hit it while it's hot. And so we felt it was the best thing to do. It wasn't what we had on the agenda, but we had to flip script, so to speak, and move on with where we are now. So here we are. Yeah. So I'm gonna turn over to Errol, and Errol will take you through, and then we will switch roles, right? But Errol will take it with the rest until he hands it back to me. Errol, over to you. Unmute, Errol, unmute.
I say good evening, welcome everyone, and thanks for that introduction, Brother Aaron. Today we're going to talk and have discussion, and I'm looking forward to some great conclusion. We want to talk about paternity leave. When father's not in their children's life, Lord, it just make me grieve. So my friends, once again, welcome to the talk. Today we'll talk the talk, and we want you walk the walk. I'm trying something, you understand what I'm saying? It's just because I'm so happy to be here and to be having this discussion with such a wide group of people. So why are we here? You know, why Parenting Partners Caribbean want to deal with affirming fatherhood? You know, well, we want to look at some objectives. This evening, we intend to share, release, express, and feel good. Share and express, excellent. Release and feel good, even better. All right, we're going to look at some action. What more can we do? And we're going to try and examine what we can expect coming out of our discussions. So before we jump in, not seeing blacker, but we want to have a bit of how do I say, position the discussion a bit. So I think, Joseph, you have a bit of a ad lib to do for us?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Well, let's jump right into
All right, so we're gonna jump right in. So the other day, I am in the supermarket and I hear people talking about the bridging under stress. I think, boy, I have some leave. No, that's not how it goes. I need to get it right and to remember exactly how it goes, right? So two people, two bridging in the supermarket that talk. One of them on leave, right? They haven't seen each other for a long time. So bridging, I'm gonna see how long. The boy, you know, say, I'm on leave. So for real? Leave? Say, go on, you have travel and thing. No, not that kind of leave. Paternity leave. Paternity leave. What do you mean paternity leave? What man do on paternity leave? Say, what you do? I breastfeed, seriously, brethren? I said, no, spare, you make it look so spare. You make me feel like, say, what? Now, what, man? So what do you mean by paternity leave? I never know name, so. So the discussion continued about what is paternity leave, how it go, who can get it, when you can get it, why would a man want to take paternity leave to go, yeah, go mine, picnic, especially when so much jacket are given, right? So really and truly that discussion went all the way till other persons got involved, right? Both men and women. One woman jumped in and said, look here, it makes sense to me, you know. It makes sense to me because I can sleep and hubby change diaper, hubby feed, not breastfeed, but with the milk, with the bottle. Yeah. And what I found powerful as well, one of the women said, you know, I am willing to share my position as mother. I am willing to share the power. I am willing to share and come off of the pedestal that mothers have. with my husband, who will now share this time while he's on paternity leave. And the discussion went on and on and on. And that bridging went from feeling bad about taking paternity leave, but you know, some man with them much yourself and them don't want to feel as if, you know, them are gonna get judged by them bridging. All of a sudden, start feel like him glad and ready to admit and happy. You know, I'm proud to say, yeah, I take paternity leave. I'm proud that I get to bond with my youth. I get to learn more about my youth from early, right? And he left the supermarket that was supposed to be a routine trip to pick up stuff for the household, for the baby, for wife, yeah. And he was feeling good about himself, about fathering his firstborn child. This has been his first child. So he went from feeling very tentative, I don't know what to do, to feeling very empowered. All because of this little discussion, right? Because initially it was wife that pressure him to taking paternity leave. Honestly, never really want, but now he's feeling good about himself. So he left the supermarket empowered and feeling better. So that is where we are, Errol, and we're gonna leave it there. We're gonna open it now to general discussion. Back over to you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Wow. Quite a tale, but I can see it happening. That was a very real situation. And it is such a strange thing to us in this part of the world, paternity leave. Though some companies in the Caribbean already offer it to men. And how do you feel about that conversation, guys? What do you think and how do you feel? I want you to answer in the chat, please. Feel free to drop a line, a sentence or two, you know, how you feel about that. But what you think the man who was challenged, the one who went to the supermarket, how you feel about his movement from being awkward about it to feeling empowered about it, how you feel about other people getting involved in the conversation, how you feel about women getting involved in that conversation. Drop a note in the chat and we want to look at it and we'll get back to those, right? And what are the messages in that story? What are the messages that you heard in that story? All right. Things that may have resonated with you, things that you think jumped out from the story that you think is worth mentioning. Drop a line in the chat, drop a line in the chat. Who do you identify with in this scenario? Yeah, talk to me. Let me know who you identify with in this scenario. Again, I'm asking that you put those comments in the chat, that feedback, go right ahead and put it in the chat. And if there are any other things that you want to bring up outside of that little guideline I gave you, put that in the chat also. I also want to know how you feel about paternity leave. How do you feel about it? Yes, I reckon everybody here gung-ho about getting it legislated throughout the region and empowering men to, and companies to give the leave and men to go out and leave. But how do you feel about paternity leave?
I'm sorry, Errol, I need to interrupt. Before they answer those questions, just a reminder or point of information rather, that there's a poll. If you look at the bottom of the screen, we have a poll going.
Right.
It's a few questions, not many questions, simple poll. We'd love you to respond. We're gonna ask a question. No, we want to ask it at the end of the discussion regarding paternity leave. For the Caribbean, please answer and we can get back to the discussion. Sorry for interrupting, Errol.
No problem, very important. The poll is very important. It is a device to measure something so that we can look back and assess. Yeah, so how do you feel about paternity leave? You know, inside that talk, inside that story that Joseph gave us, the man asked the other one if he traveling, you know, you're on leave, so you're going away, probably going to New York or Trinidad or Barbados, some nice destination, but it's not that kind of leave. The man tell him it's not that kind of leave. It's leave where you stay home to help see about baby, to help see about the popo, you know, and therein, I think in the story where Joseph recounted, he may have been challenged about being less of a man because he's seen about baby and thing. But it's not for me to get into that right now. I want you to think about it. And like I said, down in the chat, feel free to drop a line or two about how you feel about some of those things. But we've got some panelists this evening that I'd like very much to introduce you to. Sean Wright is here. Sean, where are you? Is Sean here?
Joseph, do you want the poll to be done first before discussion?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we give
Just,
them a
yeah, just
Sean is not.
and do
yet
it very
on.
quick.
yeah.
Yeah, he's not yet on.
Complete the poll. It's yeah. Complete the poll, please. It's not going to take you more than 2 minutes. Check, and do that poll. If you're not sure, at the bottom of the screen you'll see a tab marked polls. Just click it, and you'll have it there for you to complete. 3 questions.
All right. It's 3 short questions. I'll end it shortly. Sean is on.
Hi, Sean. Welcome. 3 questions. Click them and click submit so that we can continue.
Right, I'm going to end it now.
Hello. Hello.
Wow.
Hey, Sean, we're hearing you. We're hearing you.
Okay, great.
That's Sean. We're gonna. Yeah.
Are you seeing the results of the poll there, Errol?
Yes, the results of the poll is done. It's done. All right. 75% of people said yes to question 1. Would you take advantage of paternity leave if it was available to you? 5% said no, 20% uncertain. The second question was, can paternity leave work in the Caribbean? A resounding 90% said yes. 0 say no, and 10% say not too sure about it. But the third question, paternity leave enhance family life and bonding. 95% positive and 5% not sure. So that's how the poll went. Thank you for your responses. We're going to continue. All right, I want to introduce you to our panelists. Like I said, Sean Wright has joined us. Sean, how are you going?
I'm doing fine. How is everybody?
Nice. Sean is in Canada. You're in some cold breeze now, partner?
No, man, it's very warm here now.
You know, very warm in Canada. It's not very warm.
It's very well. Actually, it's actually very warm. So I could actually step outside right now, and it's nice and toasty.
Okay. So Sean is nice and toasty in Canada, and he's going to share from personal experience. Steve Whittingham has been here with us from Jump. I'm also going to share from personal experience and experiences with children and one he had in the time of paternity leave. Stephen, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Earl. I'm enjoying the discussion.
And I have first-hand information that Stephen is in Ochi, all right? And I know it's warm there.
It is definitely warm.
Anderson Langdon from BIMSHA is our other panelist from Barbados, and he's going to speak from a policy perspective. What are the forces moving in that direction in Barbados? What is the prospect into the near future, and why is it being considered at all? All right, Anderson, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I am quite well. And are you in Barbados, Anderson?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Oh my gosh, never a dull moment. You know, I wish I was there, Anderson, but alas, I'm here. All right. And do we have someone from Flow joining us this evening?
No, we didn't get them.
Okay, no problem. All right. So we're going to jump right in, I think, and get those presentations going from our panelists. And we'll start off with you, Sean.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, we're speaking about paternity leave and the role of the father here. in Canada. I can speak from my perspective, where when my wife got pregnant, she applied for paternity leave here, which is an option. 60% of your salary is paid, and you're allotted what is called a well, it's called a paternity leave, but you can take emergency leave as well. So that would fall under things like bereavement, the sickness, things like if you lose your job. So the paternity leave fell under what the government offers as those type of emergency funds. And what I found was that it was very, very helpful, because my wife had difficulties with her pregnancy. She had a C-section, and at the end of the day, she wasn't very mobile. And for me to be able to take paternity leave and able to be there to help her do the lifting, to move around, help with the baby, get her food, do the regular housework and that type of stuff, that was a benefit to our family. You know, are you hearing me? Hello?
Yes, we are.
We hear you loud and clear, Sean.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, great. Yeah. Yeah. So I also had there was a little bit of a heads up on my side, because my wife is Jamaican heritage. Her mother is Jamaican, but she was born in Canada, raised in Toronto, moved over to BC, where we are right now on the West Coast, about 10 years ago. So she's familiar with the way things are done and how to take full advantage of the offers that are given by the government of Canada. So she was able to, apply for those things, and they were implemented. I spoke to a few of my Jamaican friends that are here. I have a couple of Jamaican friends that moved up here. One guy was a police officer in Jamaica, and he moved up here to the truck driving. And he had a totally different story, right? Because I have a 9-to-5, and I was able to take leave and collect 60% of my pay. And while he works with driving trucks, which is he actually get paid due to the amount of trips you make. And his experience was a little bit different, because his wife is Jamaican as well, and they both moved up. So they weren't very familiar with all the advantages that it could take of taking paternal leave. So they didn't apply for it. And another friend of mine, I have two friends up here that both have their wives move up, and they had children up here as well, and they both have totally different stories to me. And I think it's just out of the fact that my wife was able to be aware of the system a little bit more than they were, and knew how to apply. And we definitely reap the benefits of being able to have me at home for 6 months.
Thank you, Sean. Anything more? That's it?
Well, I mean, you guys can throw some questions at me in terms of my experience.
We'll come to the questions in a bit. Thank you very much for your contribution. All right.
No problem.
We're going to move to Steven.
Sure. Thanks, Errol. And thanks, Sean, for sharing your stories. I guess there's some similar experiences that I'll share as well. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm an executive at Grace Kennedy, and I would describe my job as stressful, And then I'm a father of 4 at the time, before I went on paternity leave, as a father of 3. And I would describe, my house as a bit of an asylum. It's crazy, like lots of children around the place, lots of excitement, screaming. So I definitely think of my life as stressful, But I have 4 children now. The oldest one being 11 and the youngest one being 6 months. And so I had 3 children in Jamaica without paternity leave. So I didn't get a chance to spend as much time with them at birth. And I have my last child, who's a boy, Asher, he was born, and I was able to be the first person at Grace Kennedy to take advantage of the paternity leave that we as an executive team had advocated for and put into place. Didn't know it wasn't self-serving, didn't know it was happening. It just happened by coincidence, right? So, you know, there are a few things I want to share about that experience. And I want to start describing it in the context of COVID, which really changed the way in which we moved around as a family and as a business team. So, you know, this whole concept of, you know, how much time we spent together as a family, all of those things changed a lot. It increased during the COVID pandemic. And there were also some different things also. You know, like Sean, my wife had a C-section for her fourth child. The other three children were all natural births. And being able to spend time with her to help support her during that time period was really important. And I think physically she may not have been able to do as much as she needed to do, so I was there. But also from a personal perspective, Errol, it really helped, I think, with my relationship with her, and I think it has strengthened that relationship and really brings stability to the family organization, our home. And I think that's something that is really, you know, something that as a country, as a region, we need to work on, more stability in the home. And I've heard this concept, you know, about, you know, about not wanting to take paternity leave, what kind of thing that, you know, is, you know, big man that do those things. And to me, you know, I think that that's absolutely the biggest thing that I could do as a man, to be there to support my wife and our children, just like how I support the children and her financially, lifting things in any which way we do it. I think being there at birth is also really important. You know, I think if you take a look at my relationship that I have, and obviously it's really premature because I've only have a 6-month story to tell, but I definitely think that there is a relationship that I have with my youngest child that I didn't have at the same age as I had with my older children, and that's something I think that has to do with the time that we spent together. I tell you a little story. There's a little sound that I made every time from he was born. It was just a little sound, just like three little clicks. And to this, I did it from the moment he was born and the time we spent with him. And every time to this day, if I do it, no matter where he is, he stops and looks around. And you know, it's just a sign that it's something that was really beneficial to him and to me as a parent, you know. And I think about it also from the perspective of my relationship with my company, because you know, in the world in which we operate in now, as an employer, it is really difficult to find and retain talent and to keep that talent that we have engaged. And you know, working for an organization that takes the time to allocate resources to allow me as a father and other employees as a father to be able to, you know, spend time with my family in a really critical time period. Those kinds of things mean a lot to me, and I mean a lot to employees. And I think it really does a lot to strengthen the relationship with the employers and between employers and employees, especially in an environment that's really competitive as people are trying to find, you know, where they should work. And Sean talked about it in Canada, people not knowing what the benefits are. And, you know, this could be a really big retention tool. And lastly, I think it really promotes gender equality in the workplace, which is something that I am a big proponent of. It doesn't only go one way. Gender equality means that we all, whether male or female, do get to share some of these benefits. So I think at the end of the day, it's just been a really positive experience overall, and I'm happy to share more about it. But I think this is a good start in terms of an introduction to my experience. I'm happy to take any questions later.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you very, very much. Now, Donna asked if the questions that we are asking or that I asked earlier on are for male participants only, and the answer is no. In fact, this entire exercise is far from being a male-only exercise. This is a all-a-we exercise. All of us, we're all affected by the prospect of having paternity leave, and we're all affected by not having paternity leave, our entire society. So please, everyone, feel free to respond to the questions. They were fielded around how you felt about the story that Joseph related to us. Did anything jump out at you? Who did you identify with in the story? And anything else from the story that you reckon is noteworthy? As small as you may think it is, go right ahead and place your comments in the chat. Yeah, we will get back to that. Nice. So once again, thank you very much, Steve. And I'm calling on Anderson now, our panelist number 3, for his contribution.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Let me say thank you for the opportunity. And I thank you for you two gentlemen for sharing their own experiences. I am myself, I'm a father, and I want to show you where this, my support for this comes from. Sorry, just saw a question in chat. The reality, in 2018, the Barbados Fine Plan Association was reviewing its own internal policies. And we realized that for our organization that focuses on equity and gender and sexual and reproductive health rights, we were lacking our own equity in terms of paternity and maternity leave, which was under a broader context of parental leave. And we adjusted our policies to such. And then we said, hey, we know the benefits of this. We know the equitable society that can be built from this, the positive impacts that can be built from this in terms of the quality of life, in terms of child development, in terms of crime, in terms of addressing all those negative aspects of society. Why not begin advocating for it? So in January of 2019, we did an outreach and did an article with the Advocate newspaper here, one of the major newspapers here, and we got a whole set of support. So much so that after we announced that we were doing this initiative, several companies in Barbados now indicated that they were doing the same. Moving forward, coincidentally, the election of 2018, sorry, that was 2019, sorry. In 2018, we saw that there was a mandate to support paternity leave. What we didn't know is that there was also undercurrents from the private sector of Barbados. Barbados Employers Confederation, the Barbados Childhood Nutrition Foundation, and also in their own advocacy seen the benefit, because as Steven rightly said, that he saw the benefits it had on his wife, and how it made the whole process easier. And this is where these groups saw the impact on their employees, the benefits to the employees. And coincidentally, after that, the Bureau of Gender Affairs started a road trip on having three discussions across the island on paternity leave, interacting with the public, because they want to put forward a formal policy document based on the discussions and based on the recommendations of where paternity leave should go. And I'm just going to flag some questions that people may ask. What it looks like, how do you monitor it, how do you apply for it? So the question with regards to single male access, single parent access, all these things came up in the discussion on paternity leave. And therefore, the outcome of that was, even subsequently after that, the National Insurance Scheme, which means that by this time, the government it's quite serious about paternity leave, investigating how to finance it, how to support it. And they took a host of recommendations that I put forward, of course, in collaboration I'm on a Flag Herding Men's Empowerment Network Support, a male organization which I also am affiliated with. That also was part of this, get a group of men understanding the needs, seeing the challenge, seeing the benefits. And unfortunately, unfortunately, COVID-19 impacted the work that was going on there. But what I do know in the follow-up discussions, that the discussions were still taking place. I'm waiting, to have a further discussion to see where that is going. But of course, there are other discussions as it relates to NIS financing, as it wants to look like. But I believe it is the direction to go, because inevitably we are aiming to move from developing states to developed states and have a higher quality of life for all of our citizens in the Caribbean. So therefore, it is a discussion that I think it should take place sooner rather than later, so that when the opportunity comes, it is not left by the wayside by our policymakers. And most importantly, benefits that can have in our society can help address some of the challenges that we now experience. So I'm gonna just end by saying that as I mature in my work experience, I have one son, and I wish, even though I did have some flexibility, I wish that I had spent more time with him in that early developmental process. I actually spend a lot of time with him now, but I don't think we can get back those early years, especially our fathers. Research shows it clearly. When the bond of the father and the son and the daughter, between the father and the child, is initiated early, it leads to better relationship, better developmental contacts, and also it strengthens the bond of the relationship between the mother and the father, especially in that early period. I should also add that I'm also a psychologist by profession. So please, if I linger on also those aspects, it is just, that is my calling.
Thank you very much, Anderson, for your contribution. We are supposed to get into question and answer time now. So panelists, prepare yourselves. But before we do that, I'm looking at a comment in the chat. Alan Carter has said, if we are in support of equity, then married and unmarried should get the same benefit. But personally, I would want this benefit for married men only. And I'd like very much for Alan to say a little more about that, about married men only getting benefit. Is Alan still with us? Yes, he is. Alan.
Yes,
Right.
I'm here.
Right. Tell us a little more about how you feel about that.
Well, I mean, I was looking at it from the perspective of the fact that the woman, she gives birth. There is no question of whether or not she would be in the life of the child. But there's a question mark around men who are not, there's no evidence of cohabitation. So what would be for me, what would be the purpose of giving them if they're not living in the same establishment? That's how I was looking. That's how I was looking at it. And then based on that, I was looking at what would be something that would tie it down. It would be the common law, or it would be an actual marriage. So once you would be able to show evidence that yes, you're living in the same establishment, then that would be the purpose. That would be the purpose of bonding. The bonding of the child would come into play now in the night when she needs assistance. If you're not there in the night is really the ticklish part, you know. So that was the thinking behind my comment.
Thank you very much, Alan. I hear what you're saying. It's not unusual for married people to not live in the same house, or unmarried people to live in the same house. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on this or has any questions or concerns about that. It's a very, very important question that Alan has raised there.
Sure, Errol. Can I take this one, Anderson?
Yes, please.
This is not the first time we do or not we're having this question. what I'll say to you is that I think we're focusing on the father or the relationship, but the emphasis really on paternity is for the development of the child. And let's focus on that context. What I'm going to say is that there are fathers who never lived, who are not married to the woman that they have a child with, but they play an instrumental part in the role of that child, the life of that child. That happens. Not the same, not cohabiting, but play an instrumental part. The question is the burden of proof of if this person is truly father. But let us take away about this burden of proof of who is truly father, but really burden of taking care of the child. And what I'm saying essentially is that the mother identifies this person as the person who will be the father of the child. And I'm not talking about verbal or whatever. There must be a process in which it is documented that a mother came with a father who is the father of the child, who will be eligible for that period of paternity leave. We can get into the nitty-gritty of how we want to monitor that, or how we want to play that process, but there must be an acknowledgement of the mother that this person is indeed, or is the person who will be fathering her child. And I think that is fair for those who are married and unmarried, simply because of the fact that it is the child that we're focusing on and the role of that person in the child's life that we're focusing on. So that is really my take on it. It shouldn't necessarily be for those men who are married or those who are in common law relationships as it relates to cohabiting or visiting relationships. It should really be the person who's proof that I am the father of the child. The mother agrees that I'm the father of the child, and I'm eligible in my support of the mother and of the child for paternity leave. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to respond to this question?
Sure, Errol, just briefly in support of what Anderson was saying, I do agree. And just from the perspective of the employer, you know, the paternity eligibility rules that I have seen don't require the father to be married to the mother. There are more, and in fact, there is no, you know, question of whether or not, you know, testing to confirm fatherhood. I think the most important part is just that from the perspective of an employer, that, you know, this person is the father in the life of this child, and the benefit is really for the child and not necessarily for the relationship between the mother and the father, which I think will be better for it, but the perspective is really for the relationship with the child. So it has not been a factor whether the individual is married or not, based on my experience so far.
Sean, I want to come to you because in your contribution, you said she applied for paternity leave.
Well, yeah, because she knew what the regulations would allow for, and was more familiar with how to manipulate the system and apply for the leave at the time. I was new to Canada, so my knowledge wasn't very strong in terms of how to apply for these things.
May I ask a question, Errol, Sean?
Yeah, sure.
Who did she apply to? Could you be working for a private company or a government? Who would the application be made to?
The government.
Although you were working for the government? No,
I work for a private sector company, and you apply to the government, and the government gives you emergency leave, which would fall under either the categories that I mentioned before: bereavement, paternity leave, unemployment. It's called unemployment insurance, and it covers several aspects of help to the people. Another thing that was offered here in Canada was that once the baby was born, we got an email stating, hey, listen, if you need help, you can come to us. And we were offered cribs, food, diapers, clothes, the full, anything that you could want. And it was based off of the honor system, where if you actually really needed it, that's when you should take it. That type of thing for people who really need it is a great help when you're just having a child, right? So, as I said before, Zara, it was Joseph, the the knowledge was on her side in terms of how to apply. So I just let her do it, and she just kind of just ran with it, and it worked out well, right? And on the other note, I don't think that marriage has anything to do with paternal leave. I think whether the person lives with the wife or not, the ability to take that leave to bond with the child should be on the onus of the man, not whether he is married to the woman or not. I think he should still have the opportunity to get that bonding time with the child. Marriage has nothing to do with whether or not he should have that bonding or be given the opportunity to have that bonding. That's just my take on it.
Thank you very much, Sean. Now, I'm people in the chat again, guys, and I want to ask Fabien Sargent if he's from Trinidad. Mr. Sargent, are you from Trinidad?
He's from
I
Barbados.
am a proud Bajan. I am from the country of Barbados.
I feel you have some kind of Trini blood in you because of the question you asked. It's a real smart man question.
That's a Caribbean
It is a real question. You
Yeah.
understand? Men, our penises are quite quick, so we got to be able to deal with these things. And I find that we pussyfoot around the real issues. And these are the real issues. And if we're going to have a fruitful, realistic conversation about men and paternity leave, we have to look at the issues that will come up, especially in the at the ground level with what you will call in Barbados parlance the whatless men.
Right. So Fabian's question and comment is, what is the qualifying criteria for paternity leave in countries that have such, referring to instances where a man could have more than one woman pregnant or impregnate women in an effort to exploit the benefits?
Okay.
Well, go ahead, Anderson.
Yes, I got it. So the truth, in my ideal concept of paternity leave, there's some key concepts that are important. It needs to be doctor verified, partner confirmed that that this person is the partner and is the father, and there needs to be a minimum period of leave stated, and in cases in the first world, there are minimum and maximum periods of which you are allotted paternity leave. So even if you have more than one woman pregnant, there's some countries that have it for a number of children, but there's some that qualify for a certain amount of leave in a period of time. So you can't have, for example, a maximum amount in a period, in 2-year period, a maximum of 12 weeks in some cases. So there is a limit, and there are fines and penalties for those who abuse the paternity leave. For example, as it were, there are people who are smart. If the child, if it is clear that you're not the father, or it is attempt to maliciously subvert the government or full government, there are penalties for this as well. So therefore, what I'm saying to you, Fabien, is that there are instances in which if you have 2-3 children a year, that will maybe it for the period of 2 years. With more than one partner, there are considerations for that as well. So in my estimation is that there should be limited periods of time, limited number of children, and limited number of partners for the eligibility of paternity leave. That is controversial in some cases, but there's a cost to the society, a cost to the business with regards to paternity leave, given all of its benefits as well. It's a partnership that should not be abused.
Thank you very much, Anderson. Now, in national insurance in Trinidad Tobago, for women, there's a certain amount of confinement you can have in a particular period. If you're having a baby every year and it's going on beyond 3 years, then the state says, hey, we can't take that bounce, you know. So it's up to a certain number of pregnancies, a certain number of children, or confinements as they call it sometimes. So it's a very, very important question, Fabien, and I'm glad you raised it, because I imagine when we're talking about paternity leave, we have to talk about it in a framework, just as maternity leave is dealt with, that there are guidelines, and that's a very important guideline. It is. Now, the weird thing is, a woman can become pregnant for 2 different men in 2 different years, but a man can have 2 different women pregnant at the same time. So, you know, we have to look at those things, and that question you raised is very important. So thank you very much. I have someone here, J. Charles, as an HR practitioner in the Caribbean. We stipulate that the leave can be accessed within a particular period of time, and the period of time corresponds to that of the female. All right, so thank you. Thank you, guys. What's that, Joseph? How does it correspond to that if male? If the male, something missing there? Go ahead, Joseph.
It should have been, how does this correspond to that of the male? I'm curious, I want to ask further, as an HR practitioner, how would you respond to that question regarding fathering a man who is fathering multiple women, who have impregnated multiple women at the same time? I'm saying this is a real case. I'm aware of a case where an individual, within the space of 2 weeks, 3 of his girlfriends gave birth, right? And so I can't begin to imagine, you know, but how does, as an HR practitioner, how would you manage something like that? I mean, that time frame, that period is very much close. But let's say if it was having fathered, your girlfriend have a child in January, another girlfriend have one February, another one March. How does HR deal with that? How would HR deal with that? And Charles, how would that happen? And also Anderson, if I see you smiling there, but yeah, I'm curious about it as well.
Anderson, you want to have a shot at that?
Oh man, limitations, they're clear. You have to be clear in the limitations of what you're saying. I think J. Charles did really say that it is similar to what is stimulated within the female. As they're saying, because they're responding, J. Charles is responding, it's not up to the employer to decide which part he applies for the leave. Okay. So it's within the national stipulations that the guidelines are clear that this is what is permitted. Okay? Some organizations can assume, again, that is national policy, but organizations can stipulate. But again, remember, it is also at the cost to the employer. And with all policies, even with maternity leave, there are clear policies in which the period of maternity leave can be taken. I know I don't want to say there's, well, if we look at the equitable, there are aspects of the current legislation which can also be applied in the context of men. But again, there's clear stipulation and clear lines for abuse. And the most important thing is that including the HR practitioners, including the NIS scheme, they must not allow persons to pervert the legislation, pervert the guidelines by being here and there, but must enforce the guidelines with the right punishment and the right penalties and the right fines for that. So that it is clear that with the guideline, for example, and for me, the maximum amount of period in 2 years is what I'm saying. For me, that what I'm saying, there's legislation that would show, as you say, quite rightfully 3 months, 6 months, but within that period, it is clear that your guidelines, whatever you're gonna have, must be clear exactly what period. Again, this is a benefit. This is not per se a right. It is a benefit
I'm curious, Stephen, at Grace, and I see Jason's hand up, and I saw Tanya's hand early up there.
You have a couple hands up.
Right. But Stephen, is there a policy? What is the policy at Grace for the unmarried man or the man who does not cohabit with the mother of his child?
So there's no limitation as it relates to marriage or cohabitation. It's that those are not criteria at Grace Kennedy, nor have I seen them in any of the policies that I've seen in organizations. What there are stipulations around, and this is what Anderson was referencing, and this is an organization by organization thing, is, you know, what happens, what are the limitations to which this policy can be accessed by an employee? If you think about it, really, the employer is not saying to you that you can't have, as a woman, you know, a child every year for 10 years. They're not saying that. Or as a man, that you can't have, you know, 5 children with 5 different women in a year. The employer's not getting into that. The employer is only saying that they're affording you a benefit, and there is a limitation to that benefit within a particular period of time, and each organization has to set those limits, which within some level of reasonableness. And I think that that's what we try to do at Grace Kennedy, and I know that that's what other organizations have done in terms of just setting time parameters around how these benefits can be accessed. And I think it's really good that we're talking about this, because, you know, it is a factor of how our society is. And I really appreciate the individual who brought this forward, because if we really want to get to the bottom of this issue, we have to talk about this topic and just make sure that we're all on the same page and aligned as to how we can manage through this unique situation we find ourselves in the Caribbean.
Thanks a lot, Stephen. Jason, let me give you a hand at Elise. Go ahead and make your contribution.
Right. Good evening, everyone. What I was saying, within the context of what Joseph mentioned as an HR practitioner, there has to be some boundaries in relation to the whole argument of paternity leave. And we can look at what is present, what exists, well, especially in Jamaica, as it relates to maternity leave. I hear what person said about was Grace, I think it was Grace Kennedy, one of the company. But I know in the JCF, I think there's a limit in terms of how many pregnancy that persons would get benefit from. And that is important as it relates to HR and how they want, because the benefit has to be mutual. So it has to be beneficial to the organization, to these employees who are looking out for the employee, to the employers who are looking out for the employees, and as well as the families in which these employees live and work for the organization. Thank you.
Go ahead, Janet.
It was really a question for Sean, because he spoke of his wife applying to the government for the paternity leave, or for the leave, whatever they called it. I'm curious whether anybody has had experience, or if you know in Canada experience where government, where government would provide the benefit, but the company would not be comfortable with the leave. I mean, is it double negotiation there?
Not from my knowledge. It is widely recognized that it's an acceptable norm, and
So
nobody,
whether you're private sector or government sector or whatever, private sector would honor a government benefit.
Exactly.
I put that question because if we become Caribbean advocates, we want to know for sure what we're advocating and how that would work, both with private sector and non-government sector.
Yeah.
I mean, government sector as well.
Mhm. Yep. Based on my knowledge, I think what people usually take into consideration is if it's a private sector, the length of time. I think most people take 6 months when
Mhm.
they're allowed like a year, and I think that is just to be considerate of like the job that you're in, eager to get back to it and contribute. But for all intents and purposes, legally, you're allowed a year.
Wow, okay, thanks.
No problem.
In Trinidad, women are allowed benefits for 3 pregnancies in a 5-year period. And the national insurance pays the benefit. So employers will go ahead and pay you your salary and they make an application to the NIS.
Errol, you're muted.
You're muted,
You're
Errol.
muted.
You're muted.
Right, so I was saying in Trinidad and Tobago, women are allowed 3 pregnancies in a 5-year period. And it is the national insurance that pays the benefit. So employers, they go ahead and pay the worker their salary at the end of the month for the period. And usually it's 3 months they get. And they apply to the national insurance for the refund. So to make the woman's life easy, the company will go ahead and pay, and they will see about getting the benefit back from the state at the end, because in Trinidad and Tobago, everybody's supposed to be paying their national insurance. Once you're employed or unemployed, once you're earning, you're supposed to be paying national insurance. So I'm saying, I imagine in the case of setting up something for paternity leave, that similar guidelines will be in place.
Favorite Errol, this discussion is really, I'm enjoying this discussion. Not only because most of the contributors, well, all of the contributors so far have been men. In our previous conversations, they were dominated by women. I mean, this paternity leave, it is going in the right direction. But I'm curious, I saw Tanya's hand up earlier. She put it back down. I'm not sure it's because the question was answered or what. I don't want, if she feels, if she still wants to make her contribution. Are you still with us, Tanya?
Light born.
There's a Tanya on mute.
Yeah, she's on mute. She's not unmuting. So Tanya, if you're listening, if you're hearing, feel free whenever you do want to give your input to go ahead. Sorry about that, Fabian. Go ahead.
That's all right. That's okay, Joseph. At the risk of being a bit long-winded, I want to add something more. That my television station, we had a young man some years ago who was about to become a daddy for the first time. And my business partner and myself, we called him in and proposed him that he can have some paternity leave. And I want to tell you, I'm not sure how it affected the relationship with his child and or the mother of the child at the time. But I could tell you, we sent a boy off on paternity leave and a man came back out to work. And we were very, very happy with this new attitude, this new sense of taking responsibility and using initiative and so on. It really worked for our own betterment in the workplace. And I couldn't not share that with you. All right. We have a question to Sean. And it goes, so the paternity leave allocated in Canada is the same as the maternity, that is 1 year. And is it 60% of each salary that is granted?
Yes to both questions.
Canada is a place to make it sure, but but I want us to stay in the discussion, and I want to hear from some of the other people here, especially some of the female voices, you know, because we're looking at how this thing can apply in the Caribbean. You know, I suspect that Canada, being a quote unquote older nation, may have gone through where we are already. And do we just look at their templates when we're thinking about what we should do in the Caribbean? Or does culture have something to do with it? And should we be really walking the journey ourselves to get to that place? And that's open to everyone who's out there to respond to that or comment in that direction.
Well, I can open that up. I feel like culture is very, very important, and people's mindsets are totally different. So one would have to tailor whatever it is you're doing to meet the needs of the culture so that people can relate to whatever is happening, right? So whether, you know, if you're gonna have a promotional package going out there, you would have, you know, trucks with people singing, maybe a jingle to promote it, and it would be within, you know, reggae, the culture of reggae music that can be relatable to people. That might not be necessary in Canada, but I think the average man on the road, you have to relate to him through in whatever means you can. And some of that time it's through cultural aspects like music and food, right? And to get the message across that this is a thing that can bond the family together. So from that aspect, of course, culture is not just should be in the question, it should be a necessity in terms of tailoring what it is you're putting out there to the individual countries and the people of that country.
Thank you. Now, I know we have some information via a couple of slides about what exists in a couple of places. So we're going to take a look at that and we'll come back to this discussion, which is going very good. So Colleen, would you or someone share the slides we have with respect to what applies now in some places?
Of course, now I can't find it, but we will in a minute. So there are a couple other questions going. So while you look at some of those questions in the chat, I'll find the presentation. It just escapes me right now.
Errol, if you don't mind, I just wanted to also comment on this, since we have some time on the matter we just raised about culture and how we manage to develop our paternity regulations. And I think in the Caribbean, it is really important that I think we're being very progressive now with governments, the government of Jamaica, companies all over the region, really starting to facilitate this kind of leave. And I think that one of the big things that drives it is that there are a lot of companies that do business that are from outside of the region, and you can't have a policy in one part of the world and not offer it to your other employees in another part of the world. So that's one of the things that has been benefiting. So for example, the Canadian banks have been big proponents of paternity leave in the region. But I think we need to take things slowly because I think it is more important that it becomes a large part of our society, that it is embedded at the small and medium-sized business level and up within our societies. And if you say that paternity leave needs to be 3 months, small companies can't afford that. If your paternity leave is 5 days or 10 days or something like that to start with. Smaller companies may be able to facilitate that. And I think it's really important that we take a practical approach to how we embed this in our society, because of how important I think the benefits are to our society for fostering this kind of greater stability within the family framework within our region. So I am all for a practical and pragmatic approach with taking small steps before and to introduce these kinds of regulations, which will allow for it to evolve over time.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And I think that's a very important thing, that we recognize that the benefit is not for the father as much as it is for the society. That is where the real benefit will go. Anderson, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, so I'm going to cover a couple of things. And while I endorse what Stephen said, I think that we don't be too cautious. We don't be so cautious that we miss opportunities. I want to say that let's take on the broad spectrum. Where do we want our societies to be? What are the issues that need to be addressed in our society? I'm seeing Donna putting a lot of what I'm going to say. It is really so important and so impactful that we cannot lose the opportunity to do it. Why I am for the national transformation and the regional transformation with regards to paternity, I think a lot of the companies, including the small ones, need to take the opportunity themselves to establish their own internal policies and let while government supports them in the back end. The reason I say that is because of the impact to the family, impact the family and the further impact the society. And it's clear, and I want to read off some of my stats that I have here because studies have shown that fathers who take longer leave and are more engaged in their children's life, and their kids are more engaged. What you see as well, the frequency of behavioral points between boys especially, there's a significant reduction when there's increased parental leave and paternity leave. Similarly, with psychological problems in young women, in terms of the cognitive development of our young people, the evidence is clear that paternity positively impacts that. Those societies which have good paternity practices, there's a decrease in delinquency. And let's talk about the economic advantage versus the economic disadvantage. What we see might be the upfront cost, but the long-term cost is that the individual productivity within the workplace goes up. The unit, what happens is that the employee sees the company as something that cares for them and their family, and they're able to become more productive and more ingrained. Steven spoke about it. It's also a great headhunting tool. And one of the things that we are suffering from the Caribbean is migration to and away from the developing countries. That is because benefits like these are being offered for the best and the brightest of the Caribbean, who we want to remain home and contribute to our economic and social development. We have to get with the program. I even want to go as far as, let's speak as it relates to the partner. Happy wife, happy life. When the burden of care is equitable and shared across family, whether it be child care, care of the elderly, your partner, your family unit is happier, and therefore your life is easier. The emotional burden is lifted and shared. Housework. So the benefits are clear. I agree with Stephen. We need to be sure with the feet that we put down in what we do, in terms of pushing for these benefits. But look at what we are saying are more challenges within the Caribbean as it relates to social, economic, and political development, and see the role something as simple as adjusting paternity leave can have and has shown internationally to have an impact. Look at the USA. look at the number of states, the states of those who have parental and paternity leave versus that don't. Look at the social economic quality of life of those different states. I'm just showing you that the evidence is clear that this is the direction we need to go. Yes, our footing needs to be sure. That's where I'm going to leave it at that. And sorry, I want to answer, sorry, one thing, what's his name? Joseph asked a very important question. It does raise the bar on the value of father and fatherhood. No, we're not only just saying things. We are allowing, we are saying as a society, fathers are equitable in parent care. And there are other parts of legislation that need to be addressed as it relates to parenthood and fatherhood being more equitable on both sides. But Sarah say in the care of a child, fathers are valued as well. We're not tokens, one. And two, a father shouldn't get a pass for based on that is expected of a father. Fathers should be allowed to be there. And legislation and changes to that are making it us a more equitable and fair society, which more people can thrive.
I want to ask another question, Fabien, to Sean and Steven. Were there aspects having taken paternity leave? Were there aspects about you that changed as a father specifically that you would specifically relate to having taken paternity leave? Would you put it on paternity leave itself? Things that you didn't really expect having taken paternity leave.
Well, I'll just start. I think the first thing that was different for me, because I definitely can compare it, was just the relationship with my wife. Because I feel like there was the effort to take time and to spend with her and the baby during these stages, and not having anything pressing or distracting or anything was really important. And I think that surprised me, the impact, because I've obviously been it was my fourth child, and so that was different and something that was very, very positive. The second thing that I recognize, it's just that it's not as surprising to me as the first point, was that I definitely feel like I have a stronger connection with my child at this age. But I had assumed that if I had spent more time, then I probably would have had that kind of relationship. So it wasn't as surprising, but I can definitely confirm that, in fact, especially compared to my other children at that age, I believe that the time spent was really important in terms of how that relationship and that bond between me and my son has benefited from that time with him initially.
Thank you very much, Stephen. You had asked that of Sean also, yes?
Yes, hello. Sorry, didn't hear the question, sorry.
I was asking Sean if there was anything about you that changed as a result of the paternity leave, anything you noticed about yourself that changed, either way, that you'd like to share with us.
I think I'm understanding of the process. Like, I think I have a clearer understanding of the process of what it takes at that stage of life, which if I didn't take it, I would have not had that knowledge. And a sense of maturity as well.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try to get to the slides now. I see Colleen has found them, and I will ask her to take us through the slides that she has.
Well, a lot of it is what Stephen and Sean and Anderson have been talking about in terms of the benefits. I'm gonna just put it on, make it bigger. Yeah, so talking about the changing workplace culture, which I think Stephen spoke to. That's a very important piece of the pie as well. But what we had wanted to share, and this is not hard science, but data we've pulled from the internet and various other documents to show some of the patterns around the world in terms of maternity versus paternity leave. Generally, there tends to be more maternity leave than paternity leave, and just also confirming, Sean, the experience you have in Canada, that they are pretty progressive there, as is Sweden and the UK. The US, you would see, generally is pretty poor. They have some in some states and maybe some organizations, but nothing at a national level. So this kind of gives you a picture of what happens some places: Nigeria, India, Mexico, and so on. This is pretty much what we kind of have in the Caribbean right now. Cuba seems to be fairly well ahead in terms of maternity and paternity leave. Of course, all of these, these are just numbers of days. And as both Sean and Stephen and Anderson have explained, come with various qualifications of, how much you're allowed per year or 2 years and so on. So these are just raw number of days, but we need more green in the Caribbean. Dominican Republic is probably like 2 or 3 days, but at least they have it. Cuba at least has it. And, we do, as Stephen says, a number of the private sector entities are leading the way in terms of paternity leave. This is just some points that, might help stimulate the discussion. Again, just in terms of the historical employment policies and so on. There were a number of assumptions made in terms of the wives undertake the majority of the child rearing and domestic responsibilities. So, things were framed in that kind of perspective. Whereas as we're discussing here, the fact that we're here discussing it, not just in one country, but across the region. And I think we have a number of people from different countries here who can hopefully, start conversations as well, push this argument in their countries. From a parenting partners Caribbean perspective, there should be similarities to maternity leave. We look at the social as well as the economic benefits. And as the right of a father, I mean, it's a benefit when you're working, but as a father, you want to know that you have some rights, as a father. So we advocate for parental leave and for these positive workspaces, and to be able to monitor and see how things work. As Stephen said, we take small steps, but let's take the steps and monitor and tweak as we go along. And culturally, so many things can happen in different countries, depending on your racial makeup, your religious makeup, and so on. So, we just really want the conversation to continue. And hopefully these have, given you another level of conversation that we can, continue to share.
Thank you very much, Colleen. We have some information coming in Cayman Islands where I reside. It's 10 days paternity leave, split equally for pay and non-pay. Sonia, I see you're smiling up a storm there. If you want to contribute something or ask something. Sonia? Okay. All right. So I wanted to add something though. Now, and it's about my own personal situation. All right. Like I said, I have 7 children. And because I'm an entertainer, or was an entertainer primarily, I was at home. So every time the mother went back out to work after maternity leave, I was home, you know, and as such, I ended up being a single father to 7 children from 3 women, and none of them lived with me and the children, because it was easy for everybody because I was there, I was seeing about the children. So that's it. There was nobody tried to take the children and all them kind of thing. You know, you see about the children. And it really was a case of the children growing me up, as more than it was a case of me growing the children up. I have 4 girls and 3 boys. And through my most recent marriage, I got another son. Yeah, but that whole experience to me, that whole fathering experience to me has brought so much value to my life. Although I was not in that typical marriage home with father and mother and the children, it was me and these 7 children dealing with life and growing up and so on. And there is great value, whether you live with the mother of the children or not. There's great value, immeasurable value in the time that a father spends with the children or with his children. Immeasurable. All right. I'm opening the floor for questions, comments, concerns, and fears that you may have. I know there may be some fears, but questions, comments, concerns, or fears. Too many people who are in this chat are too quiet and too silent. So this is your time.
Hi, hey Errol. There's a question for me from J. Charles as it relates to, so let me answer that. So unfortunately for me, I've been conservative in this. I've actually, in my advocated for a minimum of 6 weeks with evaluation. I'm so confident that the impact of paternity leave will be such a great one. I expect to get 4, to be quite honest with you. But it will be such a great one that when you be more time to evaluate it, that we can then advocate for further changes. That is so confident on the positive impact of paternity leave in our society that I'm willing to say, okay, give us a few days and we'll see the impact. We'll see the incremental impact. We'll see the impact in our girls and our boys. We'll see in the impact and the love between a husband and a wife, a mother and a father, co-parents. We're going to see that positive impact. I'm so confident in that.
Thanks, Anderson. Alan?
All right, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. You know, I'm just here sitting and listening to the conversations. And my concern is still gonna be there. I believe in this policy. The principle of the policy, of course, or the purpose of the policy, of course, is to encourage fathers to play a more active role in the lives of their children. But I still have to be very realistic in terms of how I look at it and how I'm looking at it now. If there are not systems in place to protect the integrity of the policy, I find that it will be abused. And in the nature of it being abused, we'll find the productivity of a sector affected because we didn't implement this policy properly. I still maintain that cohabitation is a must. If it's not there, get to work. But if it's there, I believe that we should start incentivizing men for actually cohabitating with the partner, whether you're married or you're in a common law relationship, but you're actively in the home playing a role. This policy will help them more than it will help just a man who have multiple responsibilities all over the place and really and truly don't need the time off from work, because we still have to look at it from the perspective of productivity in your country. So that's my concern, and it will always be my concern with this specific policy.
Can I just interject?
Sure, Sean, go right ahead.
You have to be, while I know how Jamaicans and Jamaican men especially can find a way around systems, right? We have a talent for that. But you have to be mindful of what you're saying with this. You're saying that you are not allowing the fathers to be, or the fathers to be active parents at that stage of life because they are not married or they're not cohabitating with the mother. This is not a good way to start it off, right? You have to find another way to get the whole the conspiracy that you're talking about, or the way that people can go around the system and abuse the system. You have to find another way to address that, because by forcing somebody to get married or to live with somebody in order to be a father is not a good way of doing it from my point of view.
Somebody needs to mute their microphone.
I want to support Sean fully. You know why? We acting like if married men and many relationships are saints and don't have multiple women and multiple children. We're being hypocrites. I'd be straight up about it. We're acting like having a wedding ring or living in a house with somebody stops those things from happening. No, I have to be straight.
Exactly.
I have to be straight.
Exactly.
And what we are doing is we're actually going to perpetuate what we are trying to avoid by this veil of secrecy that these things are perfect. What needs to happen are strong and harsh penalties for people who do not follow the guidelines. What I agree is that the ability to subvert, if we leave it as we have left many things in the hands of government, it might be a travesty, but that is the role of we're non-governmental organizations. We're social and non-state social actors. We're private and private sector and non-private sector entities which govern the work of organizations. That is where they come into play to make sure that these things are not subverted. And because productivity and profitability are of their priority, they will make sure that these issues are addressed. We need to stop being with these veils of hypocrisy that perpetuate the challenges we have in our society. I dare say, I know many young men and young women who might have, including me, I can say, like I'm being frank, where my father was not in the household, but every single minute I spent with my father was like the last day on earth. I believe that if, despite him and my mother not being together for a long period of time, that if I was able to spend more time even earlier with him, that I would have had it as, I think if they could have been more positive than that, he could have had even more impact positively on my life. But we need to stop hiding behind these veils as a society that don't work. Let the research shows that the behavior, the mainstay of a child has nothing to do if a mother and father are present, but with the parental fortitude, parental strength, parental control exerted by the parent, whether it be one or two, whether it be in the household or out of the household. We need to stop hiding these veils where evidence shows that there's hypocrisy.
Well, I totally disagree with you, and I think that is where we disagree. And there's statistical information here in Jamaica came out recently to support that. Now, if we're going to be on the platform and talking as if we don't know that the nuclear family is the best way to raise a child, then we will not have a discussion, right? But I'll maintain the point. I totally disagree with you both, but let us continue. The second part of what I would say also is that if they implement this policy, then the paternity testing would have to be also attached to it, because we do know that a man, there's no way for a man to know that he's a father, and leaving it up to the female to say he's a father won't work. We need scientific evidence that he is the father, and so therefore he would be granted. Whether, well, for me, it will be whether or not you're in a common law or you're married. Doesn't matter. Because if you don't put these things in place, we have to be very realistic. It will happen. It will happen. And that's my view. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan. Angelina.
I just wanted to just comment on that
Hello,
one part.
greetings.
Angelina.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, greetings everyone. As I'm enjoying the conversation, I want to agree with Sean that we have to be careful about the type of family that we are promoting. And I also agree with the idea of having the paternity test done, as well as ensuring that the father's name is on the birth certificate, as other ways to monitor the system. And if it is that we put a cap, or if there's a cap on how many paternity leave a man can receive in his lifetime or a certain period, we would know that would need to be done, because you might say, but okay, do we put a cap on the female? But we do understand that if a female is working, there's something to prove that she's pregnant, she did deliver a baby in the hospital, the baby wasn't stillborn, she left the hospital with the baby, or if the baby died, she would still need time to grieve. So it's easier to determine that a woman is on maternity leave or she's the mom. But it's going to be a little bit more difficult for the men, because they can impregnate multiple women at a time. So then there needs to be, for the Caribbean aspect of it, there has to be some other variables put in place to work out our reality. Also bearing in mind that when we look at Canada, yes, it's an older in terms of age, and they're more developed, and they're a welfare state, while in Jamaica, we're not a welfare state. So it would be more like applying to the employer for paternity leave rather than applying to the government for paternity leave. But maybe we need to have a national system that can keep track of how many paternity leave a man has enjoyed in a particular period of time. Thank you.
May I add, Errol?
Sure, Joseph.
So I understand Alan's point. Ultimately, the nuclear family has shown to be the best form of family. However, I really do understand both points, right? But the purpose of paternity leave, the aim is to, I'm always looking at how will this impact on the child, one, and two, the quality, will this raise the bar of parenting, of fathering? Are we saying that all unmarried men need to be monitored? Are we saying that all men in a relationship, whether married or unmarried, should ask for paternity leave? It does say something about a relationship if your girlfriend, your wife, your side chick, or whoever is pregnant, and because of whatever issues that may arise, and it's an indication can you imagine if all couples, if the men in all couples ask for a paternity test? How does that make the woman feel? There are some women, it's not necessary for all relationships, yeah? In others, we can understand why, yeah? We do understand why. But the big picture for me is that paternity leave provides an opportunity to raise the bar where fathering is concerned and how we as Caribbean societies value fatherhood. And I think that is where the focus should be, and not necessarily on the backlash or the negative aspects of the possibility that some men, a few men, will take advantage of it and will try and go around the thing by breeding up the whole woman. And I don't think that those men are in the majority. And I think as our society grows and matures, as some of the men on this panel indicated, that paternity leave allowed them the opportunity and the space to mature as men, as husbands, and as fathers. And I think that is what we should focus on the positive, on the opportunity of growth. Where with this, and I think ultimately, we do want to go back to the nuclear family. That is the standard by all means. But we also know that most of our children in Jamaica, and I dare say the rest of the Caribbean, are not born in wedlock, are not born to couples cohabitating. So we have to also be realistic and be aware of that. Too often we see children going to school, fathers are not involved. Children in jail, fathers not involved. And it impacts anything that can contribute, that can positively contribute to the involvement of fathers. We should hug it up and run with it.
Thank you very much, Joseph. It's time for us to start wrapping up, but I wanted to specifically ask our panelists if they had any closing comments. So we start with Sean.
No, I think everybody's on the right track in terms of what it is that we're setting out on, and I think that we had a good discussion in terms of back and forth between the idea of what it is that the father can contribute and how is he going to be held accountable. And some things we can agree to disagree on, which is perfectly fine. But the fact that we're actually having this conversation is actually the most important thing, and that we can have some direction. And however we work out the details, at the end of the day, the fathers, the mothers, and the family network are the ones that are going to benefit from it. And the fact that we have a drain on our fathers stepping up in the Caribbean and being there, this can be a component to change. And I think we should all embrace the blessings of that, and be grateful that we are all having this conversation. And however it turns out, it will turn out for the good.
Thank you very much, Sean. Steven?
Yeah, no, I thought we had a great discussion today. Really excited. Like Sean, I think the fact that we're having discussion is such a wonderful thing. I love the energy in the discussion that we had. It was a very engaging couple of hours, and I, personally, I just believe that if we as a society in the Caribbean are supporting fatherhood. And notice I didn't say paternity. If we're supporting fatherhood, if we're supporting structure, if we're supporting the family unit in any which way in which it exists, if we are supporting an employee base and a government and a governmental approach that is pro benefits to employees and also pro family life and family structure, I believe it will only inure to the benefit of our society, which I think, we really are struggling with little tears and little pulls on the fabric of our society all over. And I think this kind of initiative and these kinds of conversations really go a long way to trying to make our region a better place. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening. And really hopeful that we can really continue to advance this. And, in a year from now, we'll start to see bigger numbers in those charts all across the region.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Anderson.
Hi, thank you for having me. I want to say in closing a couple of things that we know in our society that there are many good fathers who are not the paternal father. If we did that are not the paternal father. If women were given an opportunity like this for the benefit of their children, there would be no questions of what to do and how to do it, but how quickly to do it. We need to say, as men who want to be good fathers, and we want to improve the state of father, we need to seek opportunities like this to prove that we are good fathers. And this is what paternity leave is. And I want to agree with one of the comments, is that this would make fatherhood a bit more attractive, to make the stability of being a father so much more attractive, that many fathers would jump on board. For me, this is in a wider context of paternity, of parental leave. We also need, and I like what I saw, I want to see this is a continuation of a discussion on family-friendly workspaces, family-friendly community spaces. So this is part of a broader discussion, but I ask that we do not lose the opportunities that are presented to us with opportunities like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Anderson. Sean, you don't have to show off that it's really warm outside. I've been the first time. Okay. All right.
There you go.
Can I make one more
Sure.
quick
Go right
statement?
ahead. Go right ahead, Sean.
I probably should have started with this, but since Anderson brought it up for fathers who are not biological fathers doing fathering, I grew up with my biological father not being in the picture, and my stepfather was the one who fathered me. So just in terms of our reference, we don't necessarily have to set the limitations of the biological father and the marriage and all of these specifications that we're laying out. We can actually allow men to be fathers without putting these caps on them. And because I've had that experience in growing up with a stepfather and not a biological father. So just to put that as a point of reference, so where I'm coming from with my thoughts on the whole parenting and fathering.
Thank you, Sean. Now, I am asking if anyone who is in attendance is from the media. Please let us know if anybody here is a media person. And in beginning the wrap up, I want to look back at something Anderson said. He said he was in an organization that spoke about equity, but it didn't offer paternity leave. And that is where I want us to leave here this evening, to go to our organizations, talk to your political parties, your companies, your NGOs, whatever organization you're in, because that equity word is on the tips of everybody's tongues. But we don't see equity with respect to men and time with their children in the Caribbean. The judicial system doesn't work in favor of men spending time with their children or getting custody of their children. The entire system feels as though it is stacked against men spending time with their children. And one of the most damaging things that is happening to our Caribbean society is the absence of men in the lives of their children. So we have to become champions for this cause. We have to leave this conversation today resolute to go and challenge the organizations we belong to. Like I said, whether it's a political party, an NGO, a company, a community group, a community-based group, whatever group it is, challenge it, put it on the table, and let's spawn more discussions about this, because I'll tell you what, it's coming. Paternity leave is coming to the Caribbean, and we have to make sure that we agitate for it and that we approach it. We take Alan's concerns on board. We take Sean and Anderson's and Steven's experiences on board. All of the things we have to take on board to create our own version, a Caribbean version of getting the daddies involved in the lives of the children. And paternity leave is one of those tools. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. It has been echoed by so many people. That's been a great discussion. I want to echo that myself. It has been more than a great discussion. It has been a very enlightening discussion. So have the conversation. I'm saying education is the key. Have it in schools, have it with your children, have it with your parents. Yeah. God bless you all, my friends. Thank you very much. And keep your eyes and ears on your social media, whatever media you found out about today's session on, because the next session, that's exactly where you're going to find out about it, because the Parenting Partners of the Caribbean continues its work for affirming fatherhood. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all. Take care. Thank you for being involved. Thank you for participating. Everybody's voice is important. Errol, big up yourself.
Yes.